Hey everybody, it's day 135 of Training Daily Excellence. My name is Brad Gieske. Today we are continuing on our week of nutrition. Our first section here is going to be our meats, our dairy, our bone broths, and our eggs. Now, although some people do have trouble digesting dairy and other people are strongly against dairy for adults, this is something that does have good nutritional composition for us if we're okay digesting it. So if it's something you can digest and you like it, go for it. It's got slow and fast acting proteins, and those will help you as an athlete to recover from your workouts. Now, something I always look for when I'm looking for dairy products is whether or not it's grass-fed. Now, it's very hard to find grass-fed dairy these days, which is crazy because cows naturally live on a diet of grass. And so you would think that most farmers would just let them eat grass and that's the end of the story. But most farmers are supplementing cows' feed with grains and other foods in order to fatten the calf faster and then to get a greater yield from that livestock. So one consideration is it's been said that grass-fed meat is a little bit easier to digest. So if you have trouble digesting meat, that might be a consideration that you have. Otherwise, just make sure that there's no growth hormones or other crazy things going into your animal. Like I said, you want it in as natural of a state as possible. Another thing to consider is preservatives. So if you can see here, we have a sausage, and so most sausages do have some sort of preservative, and it's actually really hard to find uncured, and it is becoming more readily available, but this is something that in the last 10 or 15 years people have become aware of, because these preservatives, not only one, could possibly cause some sort of health effects like cancer and other things like that, but they aren't the naturally occurring pieces in the food. So it all comes back to, were those things present in its original state? Now, you can cure with salt, and so that's a more natural approach. Even though a high level of salt may or may not be good for you over time, it's something that as an athlete you're going to be sweating a lot, and it's not really a primary concern in my opinion. Now, again, this is butter, grass-fed, if you can find it. It's more expensive to get grass-fed things, but again, it's how natural is your product, how close to nature is that product. We've got bone broth. Bone broths are super nutritious for you, very high in protein. Just make sure that you don't have anything too crazy in there. You don't have a ton of preservatives. Like this one only has 4 or 5 ingredients listed here. So bone broths are a really, really good way of adding some more nutrition to your day. Here we have some lamb. So it says 100% all natural or 100% natural. Like I said, that doesn't really mean anything these days. You can put that on anything that has 100% of the products coming from nature. It has 100% of the ingredients in the product that can be found in nature. So that should be most things, right? But unfortunately not all things are all natural. The reason I like lamb is most of the time these are going to be just grass-fed, and so that's another way of kind of getting a high quality. And over here we have eggs. So eggs are one of the coolest things in the world, and I'll tell you why. So the yolk inside of the egg, the color of that yolk is going to be determined by the nutrition of the chickens. So one of the most interesting stories I have from Kenya was every morning I'd wake up and we'd go down to the breakfast area, and in the breakfast area there's a man that was making eggs, and each morning he would ask me, how do you want your eggs? So I'd say, scrambled please. And so each morning I would get my eggs and they would just be white. So I'm like, what is going on? Like, why is he taking the yolk out of my eggs each time? And so on the third day I watched him make the eggs, and the reason why it looked like I was just getting the egg whites each day is because the yolk was white or a light gray. And so what was happening is the chickens in that area were devoid of the phytochemicals that we find in ours. So I'm not saying phytochemicals as a negative thing. That's a naturally occurring pigment that comes in food. So carrots and other fruits and vegetables have those phytochemicals. But it's just very interesting because we're so used to that orange / yellow yolk here. But if you go down to South America, you'll find red yolks. If you go to Kenya, sometimes you'll find that light gray or that white yolk. And so it's all determined by what that chicken is eating. So in South America, the reason why it's red is because they're eating from the ground, which is clay, and that has red pigments in it. So that's why eggs are crazy, but they're really cool. One thing you can check out on eggs is the vitamin and mineral composition. So you want to check this out on all your foods, but you'll notice that Eggland's Best, and I'm not sure how they get so many nutrients in there. It may or may not be a very natural process, but they have a much higher level of vitamins and minerals than the other brands that are readily available. So, like I said, I don't know how they do it, but those are some pretty nutritious eggs. Thank you all for watching. In today's video, I talked a lot about grass-fed meat and dairy. I brought that up a lot. And recognize that not all animals live on a grass-fed diet. You will not find grass-fed pork simply because pigs do not eat grass. On animals that do eat grass, like lamb and like cows, when you have a grass-fed product, you're just ensuring that the environment that the cow or the lamb is developing in is closer to the natural state in which they have evolved, in which they have thrived. And so it's not essential, particularly, that you have grass-fed foods. I want to point that out. I want to make that clear. If you can digest and you find a good benefit from just normal, off-the-shelf meat, then go for that. That's okay. But what I would avoid at all costs are preservatives and hormones. Those things are going to interact with your body. The chemical structure of those things are going to have some sort of effect in your body. Okay? So something that's a preservative is preserving the texture and the taste of another chemical compound that's going into your body. And when you're doing that, you're limiting the body's ability to then go about breaking down that structure in the same way. So just be conscious of that. Also on hormones, hormones affect our body. That's why we become men and women. And so be conscious of those things as well. Although there are some safety standards in place, you just need to be a conscious consumer and focus on getting things, like I said, that are as close to nature as possible. So thank you guys. I'll have another nutritional video for you tomorrow. And in the meantime, healthy eating.